everybody! That's right, I'm taking two hobbies I really enjoy and mashing them together to make this series. I don't have an official name for this yet, so we'll see how this plays out. And if y'all want to see more, then feel free to leave suggestions in the comments about what this series should be called. I love D&D and TRPGs. I love being able to roleplay with my friends, making original characters and playing out their stories, rolling dice, all that. I also really enjoy K-pop. I think a lot of groups and their music and their concepts are really cool, and especially the ones that feel like they should have their own TV show have really drawn my attention. So I wanted to see what would happen if I just take these two things and just mash them together. And of course, this being the first entry into this brand new series, it only made sense that I start with the group that I very much enjoy, aespa. Okay, but in all seriousness, I do plan on doing the Luna girls. I just need a little bit more time because I have to create 12 whole character sheets, and I've only done the Artemis girl so far, so this is going to be a very big project. And since we're just starting out, I wanted to test the waters for this new series and start small. And I do really like aespa. Next to Luna, they were actually the first group I thought of making D&D characters for. And I'm sure some of you are already thinking, but wait, aespa has a sci-fi concept with AI and stuff. Why are we putting them in a fantasy role-playing game setting? Well, A, because it's fun and cool and I wanna. B, because fantasy and sci-fi can coexist and overlap with each other in a lot of ways. And C, this is my channel, this is my series, I make the rules, so sit down and let me cook real quick. Okay. But first, disclaimer, these rules may or may not be outdated as of 2024. Please defer to you and your DM's preferred rule set for these character builds. And as always, please be civil in the comment section, please and thank you. A huge inspiration for this series is the channel Game Master's Guide, because he has an entire series of just analyzing various groups of characters from different media, video games, anime, all that, and building them into D&D characters. And I wanted to try that out with K-pop, especially for like lore and story-focused groups like aespa, Luna, and others. So yeah, this was a major inspiration for that. Definitely go check them out. I'm going to focus primarily on aespa's lore for this and building characters based off of how they're portrayed in the SMCU films and other stuff that we see them do in the music videos, so keep that in mind as well. This isn't going to be based on the IRL girls or their idol personas. This is more based on the characters as we see them in aespa lore. So, starting out, we have the leader and face of the group, Karina. I knew for at least one member of aespa I wanted them to be a warlock and have their patron be represented by Navis. And given how the very first teaser we got for aespa was Karina meeting her eye, I think it's safe to assume that she's one of, if not the first person in SMCU lore to meet her eye face to face. Plus, I also figured we could reflavor her rocket punch as an eldritch blast. So Karina for warlock it is. Now, depending on what type of setting you do, you could potentially have a rocket puncher or something similar as a weapon, I honestly don't know. But all the same, this is a fan favorite of the warlock class, so we'll go for this build. Oh, also, while we're leveling the girls, I decided to make them go up to level 6 to correlate with them debuting 6 years ago, back in 2020. I'm going to be using the standard array when building stats, and I'll give just a quick overview of what I actually put for each of these stats, and have them up on screen somewhere probably. Since Karina is a warlock, we need charisma as her highest stat, alongside constitution and dexterity. And I'm actually going to dump her wisdom just for story purposes, because in the SMCU films, she is the one who is most often targeted by the Black Mamba in attempted corruption and brainwashing. In keeping with the somewhat sci-fi fantasy feel for this whole concept, I also decided to make Karina an astral elf, to lean into her more ethereal, almost AI-like looks that she's often credited with IRL. This is going to give her an ASI boost to her charisma, alongside strength and dex for my personal build. Alternatively, you could also put it in intelligence instead of strength for a standard array, or you could just add 2 to charisma and 1 to dexterity. We're going to give her the Sacred Flame cantrip through the Astral Fire feat, Starlight Steps, so if she needs to get out of a tight spot, she'll be able to teleport, and the other standard elven feats such as Trancing, Dark Vision, and advantages on being charmed. And I know we just talked about dumping her wisdom because Karina is the main target of Black Mamba's corruption, but hear me out for a second. Let's say you wanted to implement the Black Mamba into the game yourself. Black Mamba isn't a real person. It's a program, an AI created in the virtual world of aespa's lore. The Black Mamba functions more like a computer virus, literally corrupting the virtual space and trying to brainwash the girls through their negative emotions and insecurities. It's using those emotions to push them towards rejecting their eyes, their own virtual counterparts, which would erase them in the process. If you're running a straightforward sci-fi campaign, this is easy to implement. Black Mamba could be an AI virus that gains sentience and wishes to spread her corruption into the real world, which could quickly escalate from trying to possess and control any form of technology into setting her sights on organic life forms. Her corruption transforming into something that can literally change someone's mind. She can mess with someone's perception of reality, their memories, even their personality, slowly brainwashing them into a perfect avatar for her wishes. But what if you wanted to do something more akin to sci-fi fantasy, or just straight-up fantasy with no technological or magitech elements? What would Black Mamba be in this context if she's not a computer virus? Well, we have the classic devils, such as greater devils known as Pelirion, I think that's how you say it, who focus on the corruption of mortal souls. We could easily spin Black Mamba into being one of those greater devils, trying to sway people to her side and spread her influence further across the material planes. Pelirions also have an ability called Draining Grasp, which can reduce an attack target's charisma score and potentially stunning them if it gets below a certain threshold. This could be the Black Mamba's modus operandi when trying to brainwash Karina and the others. Rather than solely relying on enchantments or spells that require wisdom saves, which Karina gets advantage on, she can literally whittle down their target's charisma score and stun them, leaving them prone and vulnerable to her attacks and corruption. Now back to Karina. I made a slightly tweaked version of the secret identity background mixed with elements of the entertainer to create the double life background, to reference the one I'm the Drama teaser where she played a spy who was also a celebrity. Since I'm drawing from 2 distinct backgrounds, we can only choose 2 proficiencies from the 4 that are included in each one, so I opted for stealth and acrobatics this time since we can get deception from her warlock class proficiencies alongside intimidation. Alongside the secret identity and entertainer routine feats, I'm giving Karina a custom feat called recognizable face, which I want to be a variant of the by popular demand feat. While secret identity may keep her true identity hidden, her recognizable face is attached to her public persona as a performer, which can easily work as either a benefit or detriment to her party. Like, yes, you can get a free, comfortable lodging if Karina agrees to perform at a tavern the party's staying at, but it also means garnering unwanted attention if you're trying to stay low. Maybe this would translate as a disadvantage on stealth checks in crowded areas, like a tavern or a street market, where Karina could easily be recognized by passersby. On to class features, we just went over the skill proficiencies, but Karina is also going to get advantage on charisma and wisdom saving throws, and only a few other proficiencies outside of lineage and background features with light armor and simple weapons. Karina's not meant to be the tank of the group. She's meant more to serve as a distraction and a heavy hitter, essentially the glass cannon of the group. And as per the way the Warlock is played, despite having a smaller than average limit on spells, all of Karina's Warlock spells are cast at their highest level, so her Eldritch Rocket Punch will be the mainstay alongside spells like Witch Bolt and Charm Person. But what about the Novice Patron? What exactly are we gonna do for this? Well, I decided to use the Unearthed Arcana Mage of Silver Quill as the basis for this, giving Karina access to Vicious Mockery via Eloquent Apprentice and Silvery Barbs at level 1. We're also going to get 2 additional skill proficiencies, which I'm putting into Performance and Persuasion. This is going to give her some pretty interesting spells if you continue to level her up, from Inky Shroud granting her access to the Darkness spell, and later at level 10, Illusion of Eloquence, which lets you deal either psychic or radiant damage, either charming or frightening your opponents. At level 6, this gives her 2 3rd-level spell slots and 3 cantrips to use respectively, alongside Eldritch Invocations and a Pact Boon. And we're going to use the ASI at level 4 to increase her dex once again, tying it with Charisma as her highest stat. I opted for Agonizing Blast, which lets her add her Charisma modifier to Eldritch Blast for potentially higher damage count, investment of the Chainmaster to go with the Pact of the Chain boon, which grants Karina the ability to use the Find Familiar spell as a ritual cast, and Gift of the Ever-Living Ones, which treats any dice roll to regain HP as their max value if her familiar is within 100 feet of her. And since I want to implement the eyes into this as a way to at least support the girls, we can rework them as sprites in the spell. Maybe you could say like they're little chibi versions of the girls or their eyes just floating around them like cute little pixies. Investment of the Chainmaster grants a ton of new benefits to our eye familiars, including an increased flying or swimming speed and increased resistance to certain attacks or saving throws. And there we go! We have set up our formidable face of aespa, Karina the Warlock. It's kind of funny seeing how with the reflavored Silver Quill patron and the entertainer-esque background, Karina is very much bard-coded despite being a warlock. And I think you could play that in some interesting ways. If you don't want to straight up multi-class her into Bard or another class, and if Karina wants to keep Navis's identity a secret, you could just play it as her masquerading as a Bard since she's already got quite a few overlapping spells from the Bard spell list. Next up, we have Winter, the Armamenter, which basically means she's the weapons expert of the group. Although her primary weapon in several MVs and the lore episodes is a sword, she's also shown to at least be knowledgeable in using ranged weapons like guns, even if only in video game-esque settings. Thus, it was pretty easy for me to pin Winter as the fighter class, specifically making her an Eldritch Knight to allow her to access spellcasting. At 6th level, she gets 2 cantrips and 3 first-level spells, with Intelligence as her spellcasting ability. So rather than a strength-based fighter, I'm going to lean more into a finesse build by giving her a higher dex than usual rather than strength. Finesse builds rely more on precision and agility, so we're actually going to be dumping strength and focusing on dex, constitution, and intelligence since that is her spellcasting feat as an Eldritch Knight. That said, I do want to bump up her constitution a little bit more to make Winter more tanky, so when deciding for her lineage, I opted for an Aasimar, which basically means that you're born with divine blood in you. And I don't think any of the Winter ults out there are gonna argue with me making her an actual angel. So we can bump up Constitution and Intelligence just to be safe with her spellcasting ability, and for Celestial Revelation, I gave her Radiant Consumption, which lets her do bonus radiant damage in a set area for a certain amount of time. Along with that, she'll get resistance to necrotic and radiant damage, can cast the Light cantrip with her Charisma stat, and a few other goodies thrown in there. And this time around, we get 2 ASIs from getting her to level 6, so we're gonna bump up her Charisma all the way to 14, giving her a +2 proficiency bonus. Now, in order to lean into her Armamenter's specialty, I decided to use the Guild Merchant background, which gives her proficiencies in both Insight and Persuasion. Also, despite not leaning into a strength-based build, we're going to give her Strength alongside Constitution for her saving throw proficiencies, and I opted for Athletics and Survival skill proficiencies, so she can at least have decent strength-based rolls in certain scenarios. She's more a utility fighter in this case. She has proficiency in all armors, shields, simple, and martial weapons, and for her fighting style, I went with Superior Technique and pulled Menacing Attack from the Battlemaster's maneuvers, so she can potentially frighten her target until the end of your next turn. As a spellcaster, 2 of her spells must come from Abjuration or Evocation, so I went with 2 Abjuration spells, Snare and Mage Armor, alongside Find Familiar for her Eye Companion, and Shocking Grasp as a cantrip. The The Eldritch Knight also has a feat called Weapon Bond, which I imagine you can do for her favorite sword she's always wielding. And I think that does it for our Fighter Winter build. Now if you really wanted to, I could see an argument made for multi-classing Winter into an Artificer, the resident tinkerers of D&D. You could easily fit it to go alongside Winter's guild merchant background. And there are a few options you can choose from with the subclasses. There's the Artillerist for explosions and firearms, the Armorer for enhancing defense armaments, and maybe even the Battlesmith for an effective support unit. If not, this is still a solid base to work from if this is what you want to go for with Winter. Next up we got Giselle, the... Okay, let me look this up real quick. So depending on your definition, a xenoglot or xenoglossy or xenoglossia is either referring to the ability to pick up a foreign language on a borderline supernatural level of skill or digital library of language data. Either way, the concept seems to be focused on language, so it's fitting for our resident polyglot Giselle. She's Japanese, went to an English-speaking school, debuted as a K-pop idol, so that's already at least 3 languages under her belt, among others.
Oh, but actually, English is a little bit more convenient for me, so it would be great if you could speak English. Bonjour, bonjour, je ne parle que français. Por favor, despídenme.
I decided to make Giselle's highest stat her wisdom, alongside a decent dexterity, constitution, and intelligence. Through making her a variant human, I gave her an ASI in wisdom and charisma, a proficiency in perception, and the library access feat pulled from the cloistered scholar background. This is because I'm opting for a knowledge domain cleric for Giselle. This, alongside the Lorehold student background, is going to give us a bunch of extra proficiencies to work with, including Arcana, History, Religion, and Insight. I'm also going to use her ASI to increase her Intelligence and Charisma, to give her a +1 bonus on her skill rolls for these stats. In the cinematic episodes, we see that Giselle is actually the most perceptive member of the group, catching on early to the fact that her eye got hacked and that Black Mamba corrupted the train in the virtual world. There's even a trailer for a game collab that they did with Epic 7, where Giselle straight up sees through a deception caused by either a brainwashed, possessed, or imposter mimicking Karina. While someone like Winter optimizes the group's combat force, Giselle's sharp eye and wisdom makes her the hidden ace of the group, paired up with Ningning to fend off the corruption of Black Mamba. Her Lorehold student background gives her access to 3 cantrips to choose from, to which I chose Light and Thaumaturgy, a first level spell from either Cleric or Wizard, to which I of course chose Find Familiar, as well as a ton of solid foundation building for her kit with spells like Comprehend Languages, Borrow Knowledge, and Locate Object. And that's just up to the 2nd level spells. As she gets stronger, both her background and Divine Domain let her access Speak with Dead, Arcane Eye, Scrying, and Legend Lore, among others. There's even a Channel Divinity she gains at 6th level, which lets her read the thoughts of a creature and send a command to it. I also love the idea of reflavoring Shield of Faith to look like the holographic scream she always summons. This build makes Giselle quite the foe against the forces of the Black Mamba. She can support her team in a myriad of ways depending on if they're dealing with a nasty puzzle maze or fighting off the corruption in the virtual realm. This is actually a character I would totally love to try out myself. It leads perfectly into the fantasy of being an intelligent superhero that aespa's lore often portrays. And last but not least, we have the maknae of the group, Ningning. And I'm actually going to take a bit of inspiration from Game Master's Guide again with their build on Silverwolf from Honkai Star Rail. See, much like Silverwolf, Ningning in the lore films is a computer hacker. But what if you're playing a game that has little to no sci-fi elements in them? How are you going to have a hacker if computers don't exist, basically? And the answer to that is simple. I'm making Ningning an Order of Scribes wizard. Wizard not only gives Ningning the largest access to spells in the game, but we're going to be picking out some select spells to best fit the flavor of her being an ED hacker. So we have to make sure she has a high intelligence alongside constitution and charisma. And if you're concerned with the dex being potentially lower than usual, I have a solution to this. We only briefly see it in Supernova's music video, but Ningning seems to have some sort of pyrokinesis ability in that particular video. While Genasi could potentially be a nice fit, nothing else about Ningning is really tied to fire. So instead, as an answer to Winter's ASMR, I'm going to make Ningning a variant tiefling. This is going to bump up both her dexterity and intelligence, along with the Hellfire Fief that lets Ningning cast Burning Hands as a second level spell instead of Hellish Rebuke. She's also going to get a few more spells from Devil's Tongue, such as Vicious Mockery and Charm Person at 2nd level as well. At 5th level, she also learns Enthralled, and all of these are charisma rather than intelligence-based as their spellcasting ability, hence the choice to invest in it and use the Lineage ASI to bump her dexterity. We're going to use the ASI from her class features to bump up charisma and wisdom as well. Alongside this, we're going to give her the standard tiefling feats such as fire resistance and dark vision. Next, as another way to reflavor her status as the resident hacker in aespa's story, we're giving her the criminal background, which gives her deception and stealth proficiencies. For her class features, we're also going to give insight and investigation, as, like I said earlier, Ningning and Giselle often get paired up and are shown to be very perceptive, which is helpful for their teammates. You could easily reflavor the Wizardly Quill and Awaken spellbook feats from the Order of the Scribe subclass as her phone or a holographic keyboard or something to that degree, depending on your setting. I also specifically focused on giving Ningning as many tech magic spells for this build, but if you decide not to lean super hard into the sci-fi tech magic stuff, you've got plenty more options. Like I said, the wizard has the largest listing of spells they can pull from in D&D. So it's truly a pick-your-poison type of playstyle. I put in cantrips like Minor Illusion or Message, which could be reflavored as holograms or holographic text sent to her members, Arcane Hacking and Digital Phantom to screw around in the virtual realm, and Find Familiar for her A companion. Also, once you get into 3rd level spells, you can give her Counterspell, which is essentially just a cancel button that can be used on an opponent's spell. This is another really fun build with a lot of potential for versatility depending on how you want to play. Again, just go watch Game Master Guy's video on how you want to do a hacker gamer girl in D&D. And that's everyone! We officially built a D&D version of aespa! Not gonna lie, I was actually really excited about doing something like this. Again, I feel like with these characters that they portray in the lore, you could have some really fun builds with it if you wanted to translate it into a sci-fi fantasy type setting and actually play them in a D&D campaign. This is mostly just my opinion though, so if you have a different idea of how you would want to build any of these girls as a D&D character, then please feel free to share that in the comments as well. I'd love to hear what people think about this and what they think about this series. So yeah, next time we revisit this K-pop D&D build series, we're going to move on to Luna next, so I hope you guys look forward to that. As always, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more content from us, and until next time, bye bye!